This Houston athlete is about to become public enemy number one and make millions in the process. Meet Deshaun. Deshaun is a star quarterback for a major football team in Houston, Texas, and he just finished his best season of his career. When I say the best season of his career, dude finished as the league leader in passing yards and was an MVP candidate at the time. Dude was balling. But suddenly, he wants out of Houston. He demands a trade. Now, nobody knows exactly why he demanded a trade, but there's enough chatter to point to the hiring practices of the Houston Texans. More notably, it seems like the hiring of general manager Nick Caserio may have upset him. But on top of that, allegedly, they had come to him and asked who he would like to be the next head coach for the team, and he listed Eric Bieniemy. And Eric at the time is working as an OC for Kansas City. But apparently, turns out the Texans don't even interview Eric before hiring David Culley to be the team's next head coach. And on top of that, the team's top players are leaving. Of course, I'm talking about the star wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, who was traded to Arizona at the time, and J.J. Watt, who had agreed on a buyout with the Houston Texans at the time and ultimately ends up in Arizona as well. Now, one thing about Deshaun, he just likes to unwind. He likes to relax after a game with a massage. And due to the COVID-19 pandemic, he has to outsource his massage therapy. So at the time, he's taking referrals from coaches and also teammates. But the thing about Deshaun is, allegedly, he likes to hook up with these masseuses. So he's finding them on Instagram and scrolling until he finds a pretty one, and he's using IG to set up his sessions for massage therapy. And at the time, Deshaun is on the top of the world. I mean, everybody wants him. He was a top 5 quarterback, and he seems to be getting everything he needs until suddenly, bam. March 30th, 2021, a lawsuit is filed by this guy, Houston lawyer Tony Busby, on behalf of his client Ashley Solis, one of the women that had seen Deshaun at the time. She says Deshaun contacted her on Instagram for his private massage, and there she accuses him of making her uncomfortable by insisting that she focus solely on his groin area. Not only that, she says that he used her hand to touch his private area, but she maintains that she ended the session immediately, right then and there. But look, that's not even the worst part, because then, bam, a second lawsuit is filed. Lauren Baxley, and she accuses Deshaun of exposing himself during their session. And she says that he used her hand to touch his private area. And suddenly after that, about 24 lawsuits follow. And they accuse the Texans quarterback of aggressive and forceful behavior, exposure, unwanted touching, forced oral, and even worse. Yeah, he was accused of even worse. Now, while initially there were several teams who wanted to trade for the star quarterback, they now want to see how this investigation unfolds. They need to know what happened and exactly what's going to be done about Deshaun. They don't even know that he'll be allowed to play another game in the league after these claims. So the teams, as they anticipate the commissioner placing them on the exempt list, the Texans go ahead and shut down trade talks pending the investigation. Now, while all this is going on, the Texans get hit with a lawsuit. And this lawsuit alleges that the people within the organization knew or should have known about his conduct. This lawsuit alleges that the Texans may have enabled his behavior and alleged assaults by providing him with a membership to this place, the Hotel Houstonian. It also says that the team provided him with non-disclosure agreements to use with the massage therapist. You know, NDA, so they can't talk about what happened there. It also says that the team even provided the massage tables for some of those sessions. Crazy, right? On top of that, this lawsuit claims that a representative from the company that's contracted to do the physical therapy for Texans players had reported its concerns about Deshaun's tendency to push boundaries and his quote-unquote towel trick. So the Texans leadership decided to settle with about 30 women, and they maintain that their settlement is not an admission of guilt, but a clear stance against any form of assault and misconduct. In fact, they deny having any prior knowledge of Deshaun's activities. Now, while this investigation goes on in the 2022, HPD receives a file from Tony Busby's office, and this file is detailing criminal accusations made by his clients towards Deshaun in hopes that they'll bring him up on criminal charges. But that same year, 2 separate grand juries declined to indict Deshaun on criminal charges. And this is big because this somewhat alters public opinion, enough to resume trade talks. Basically, teams believe that if he's not going to be arrested over these allegations, well, then he's likely going to get to play another game in the NFL. And so a bidding war starts between several teams who are interested in the star quarterback. And on top of these bids, you'll see the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints as the top contenders. But on March 18th, 2022, suddenly Deshaun is traded out of Houston to a surprise team, the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns immediately give Deshaun a contract, making him the highest paid QB in the history of the league. And as a side note, the draft picks that the Texans ended up getting from the Deshaun trade turned into Kenyon Green, Damian Pierce, Tank Dell, and the star Will Anderson Jr. I would say we came out all right on our end. But after the trade, there's nothing left to do but wait on the league's response. And after almost a year-long investigation, the NFL ends its investigation into Deshaun and concludes that he did indeed violate the league's player conduct policy. And their result, they issue an 11-game suspension and a $5 million fine. Now, for those who don't know, the NFL season is 17 games. So at this point, Deshaun won't be available to play until the last 6 games of the season. Now, this decision ends up getting mixed reactions from the public. On one hand, you have a segment of the population who believes that they were too harsh, considering that there were no criminal charges filed. But on the other hand, you've got a segment of the population who are disgusted at what they believe was a very lackluster penalty and the fact that the Browns gave Deshaun so much money with these kinds of accusations pending. And so several women's groups, women's advocacy groups are offended. Lots of Browns fans end up pulling their support for the team. And ultimately, this leads to protests outside of the Browns stadium during games. So Deshaun finishes his suspension and comes back for the last 6 games. And his first game back, of course, is against the Houston Texans. And in this game, you can hear several fans from both teams booing the crap out of him. I'm talking about it was brutal. And ultimately, this season, the Browns end up missing the playoffs. The following season, 23-24, Deshaun played 6 games before getting injured and having season-ending surgery on his shoulder. And in this season, he threw a mediocre 7 TDs with 4 interceptions, a step down from his stint with the Houston Texans. And this season, the Browns make the playoffs, but lose their first game in the wild card to the Houston Texans. Yeah. The following season, 24-25, Deshaun played 7 games before another season-ending Achilles tear, another injury. And this season, he regressed to 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And so he had played so badly and had such poor PR at the time, you can hear Browns fans cheering after he gets injured after that 7th game. It was crazy. The stadium was on fire. And so finally, this offseason, the Browns owner Jimmy Haslam admits that the Deshaun Watson project was a failed project, calling it a big swing and a miss.
Let's address the elephant in the room. We took a big swing and miss with Deshaun. We thought we had the quarterback. We didn't.
And by the way, if you recognize this lawyer, it's because he's also in the process of trying to take down Diddy, Jay-Z, and more recently, Shannon Sharp.